A poor girl in Texas found a billionaire's lost wallet, and what she did next changed everything. To her, that wallet was more than leather and paper. It was a door that could end her mother's suffering, pay the rent, and bring food to their empty table. But instead of choosing comfort, she chose honesty. That one choice set off a storm that reached the heart of the man who had everything, yet felt emptier than anyone she'd ever met. What began as a simple act of truth would soon uncover secrets, pain, and kindness that neither of them were ready for. Before we dive deeper into this story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. The sun hung heavy over Riverbend, Texas, that afternoon, spreading heat across every street like a blanket that refused to lift. The air stood still, thick and slow, carrying the smell of dust, oil, and fried food from a food truck parked nearby. Beside the old bus bench at the corner of Maple and Fifth, an 8-year-old girl named Sofia Fernandez sat quietly with her small backpack clutched to her chest. Inside the bag were 2 library books, a broken pencil, and a piece of bread wrapped in napkin. Her shoes were too small for her feet, and the pink color had faded to gray, but she wore them with care because her mother always said, "When you have little, take care of what you have." Sofia's eyes drifted across the cracked sidewalk when something caught her attention. Just beneath the metal leg of the bus bench lay a brown leather wallet, half covered in dust. She blinked, thinking maybe someone would walk up and pick it, but no one came. The street was empty except for a man sweeping outside a corner store and a dog sleeping under a truck's shadow. Sofia looked left, then right. No one seemed to be missing anything. Slowly, she bent down and picked it up. The leather felt smooth, real. Not like the fake one her mother carried that peeled at the edges. She turned it over in her hands, heart beating fast, her fingers trembling slightly as she opened it. Inside was money, real money. Fresh, clean, $100 bills folded neatly in a row. She began counting softly, whispering each number the way her teacher had taught her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And kept going until she reached 1,000. $1,000. Her breath caught. That was more than her mother made in 2 weeks at the diner. More than enough to pay rent, fix their leaking roof, and fill their fridge. For a long time, Sofia just sat there staring at the bills, unable to move. The paper looked almost unreal in her small hands, bright against her dusty skin. She thought about her mother, Isabella, working double shifts, coming home late every night, her hands sore and her eyes tired. She thought about the last time they had skipped dinner, pretending they weren't hungry just so the food would last another day. She thought about the pink paper taped to their door last week, the one that said eviction notice, and how her mother tore it down before the neighbors could see. A voice whispered inside her head, the voice of temptation, soft but sharp. No one saw you pick it up. No one will ever know. You could take it home, help Mama. He's rich anyway. He'll never miss it. For a moment, Sofia imagined walking through the door that evening, giving the money to her mother, watching her face light up with relief. She imagined sleeping without worry, eating dinner without guilt, hearing her mother laugh again. But then, another voice came, stronger this time, the one she knew better, her mother's voice. "Sofia, listen to me," Isabella had said once, when a customer forgot a $5 bill on the diner counter. "We don't take what isn't ours. Not even when life is hard. Honesty is the only thing no one can steal from you. Once you give that up, you give up yourself." Sofia remembered that day clearly. Her mother had walked 6 blocks in the rain to return that $5. She could have kept it, but she didn't. She said integrity meant doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Sofia's throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She looked again at the wallet, the bright money that could fix everything, and she knew what she had to do. She searched through the wallet and found a business card made of thick white paper with shiny letters pressed into it. It read, Robert Wilson, CEO, Wilson Energy Group, Downtown Riverbend. The name sounded important, powerful. The kind of man who probably lived in a tall glass building that touched the clouds. The kind who never worried about bills or broken shoes. Sophia folded the card carefully, slipped it into her backpack, and looked at the old bus sign. The downtown bus would cost $2. She had exactly 5 left for the week, but she didn't care. When the bus arrived, the driver, a kind-looking man with gray hair, gave her a puzzled look. "You sure you're getting on here alone, kid?" "Yes, sir," she said softly. "I have something important to return." He shrugged and waved her in. The air inside the bus was cool, and Sophia pressed her forehead to the window as the city slowly changed outside. Her neighborhood, full of faded houses and dusty yards, turned into cleaner streets with tall glass buildings and cars that looked brand new. Every stop made her smaller, like she didn't belong. By the time the bus reached downtown Riverbend, her stomach hurt from nerves. The Wilson Energy Building rose above everything else, its glass walls shining against the sun. She had never seen anything like it. The doors were heavy and cold when she pushed them open. The lobby inside was huge and bright. The floor polished like a mirror. Her sneakers squeaked as she walked, and she wanted to hide them. At the desk sat a tall woman with red hair, her clothes sharp and perfect. Sophia waited quietly, counting in her head before she finally spoke. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her small voice echoing. "I need to see Mr. Robert Wilson. It's very important." The woman frowned slightly. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, ma'am, but I have something that belongs to him." The woman studied her for a long second, then picked up the phone. "Mr. Wilson, there's a young girl here," she said. "She says she found your wallet." There was silence on the other end. Then the woman looked surprised. "Yes, sir. She's alone." When she hung up, her voice softened. "He's coming down himself." Sophia's hands clutched her backpack. The seconds felt like forever. Then the elevator doors opened, and out stepped a tall man in a dark blue suit, his hair gray at the sides, his face tired but kind. "Hello," he said quietly. "You must be the one who found my wallet." Sophia nodded and held it out with both hands. "Yes, sir. I didn't take anything. My mama says that's stealing." Robert Wilson stared at her, silent, the weight of something heavy crossing his face. Slowly, he opened the wallet, looked inside, then looked back at her with eyes that seemed to search her soul. For the first time in years, the billionaire who thought he'd seen everything felt something he couldn't name. And for Sophia, standing in that cold glass building, this was only the beginning. Riding, ravel, riding, riding, riding. The cool air of the Wilson Energy Building wrapped around Sophia like a secret world. The marble floor glowed beneath her small shoes as she stood quietly in front of the man whose name was printed on the business card she had found. Robert Wilson looked at her for a long moment, his gray eyes thoughtful and heavy, as if he were trying to remember something he had lost a long time ago. He was not what Sophia expected a billionaire to look like. His hair had lines of silver through it, and the tired circles under his eyes made him seem older than the man on the business magazines in the lobby. His suit was neat, but his face showed the kind of sadness that no money could hide. Robert slowly opened his wallet. He counted the money with careful hands, his lips moving softly as he reached the last bill. The full amount was there, not a single dollar missing. His throat tightened. He lifted his head, and when his eyes met hers again, his voice came out quiet, almost rough. "You found this," he said, "and you brought it back with everything still inside?" "Yes, sir," Sophia said. "It wasn't mine. My mama says if you take what doesn't belong to you, you lose something you can't buy back. Robert's eyes softened. Your mama sounds like a wise woman. She is, Sophia said proudly. She works very hard, even when she's tired. She always says we have to stay good people, no matter how hard life gets. For a moment, the lobby felt completely still. People passed behind them. The elevator chimed, but Robert didn't notice. In front of him stood a small girl who had every reason to take the money and didn't. Her words reached places inside him that he hadn't let anyone touch in years. What's your name? He asked. Sofia Fernandez, she said softly. Robert smiled faintly, though there was a sadness behind it. Sophia, I owe you my thanks. And I owe your mother my respect. Would it be all right if I took you home so I can thank her in person? Sophia hesitated. Her mama had told her never to go with strangers, but something about this man felt different. He wasn't like the others who looked away when she passed. There was something broken but kind in his eyes, something that made her trust him. My mama gets off work at 6, Sophia said carefully. She'll be home then. She works at Main Street Diner. Robert nodded. Then let's go see her. He led Sophia to the elevator. The walls were glass, and as it moved down, she saw the whole city spread below them. Cars looked tiny, people looked smaller, and for a second, she felt like she was floating. Outside, his car waited in the shade. It was long, black, and shiny, like something out of a movie. The door opened with a soft click, and the leather seats smelled new. Put on your seatbelt, Robert said gently. Sophia fumbled with the buckle until he helped her. The sound clicked firm and real. She sat quietly as the car began to move. The streets outside changed quickly from tall glass towers to smaller buildings, then to worn houses and narrow roads. Robert glanced at her through the mirror. You live around here? Yes, sir, she said. On Maple Street. He nodded slowly, eyes tracing the passing streets. Tell me about your school. I go to Riverbend Elementary, she said, brightening a little. I like reading. My teacher says I read better than the older kids. I want to be a writer one day, so I can make people feel things the way stories make me feel. That's a beautiful dream, Robert said quietly. Stories saved me too, once upon a time. Sophia tilted her head, curious. Saved you from what? Robert looked out the window. The light fell across his face, showing lines of grief that ran deep. From silence, he said softly. I lost my wife 3 years ago, my son long before that. My daughter moved far away. Some days I forget what it feels like to come home to someone waiting. Sophia didn't know what to say. Her little hands folded in her lap. I'm sorry, she whispered. That sounds very lonely. He nodded. It is. The car turned onto Maple Street. The houses here were old, their paint fading under the Texas sun. Children played barefoot in yards while mothers called from porches. Robert slowed as Sophia pointed toward a small yellow house with a sagging fence and flowers growing in tin cans by the steps. That's ours, she said proudly. As they pulled up, a faint sound reached them from inside the house. It was crying. A sound so soft and broken that it made Sophia's stomach twist. Mama? She whispered. Before Robert could say anything, she pushed the door open and ran up the steps. The front door was unlocked, and she rushed inside. The living room was clean but small. The couch was covered with a faded blanket, and the walls had drawings taped up in uneven lines. On the couch sat Isabella Fernandez, still wearing her diner uniform. Her hands covered her face, and her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Sophia stopped in the doorway, frozen for a moment, then rushed forward. Mama, what's wrong? Isabella looked up sharply, her eyes red and tired. Sophia, where were you? I came home early and you weren't at Mrs. Thompson's. I looked everywhere. I was so scared. I'm sorry, Mama, Sophia said quickly. I found something and had to return it. I wanted to do the right thing." Robert stepped inside quietly, standing near the door, unsure if he should speak. Isabella's eyes widened when she saw him. A tall man in a perfect suit looked out of place among their second-hand furniture. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. Robert raised his hands slightly. "My name is Robert Wilson. Your daughter found my wallet today. She returned it with everything inside. I came to thank her, and to thank you for raising a child so honest." Isabella blinked, trying to understand. Her hand reached for Sophia's shoulder. "You found his wallet?" "Yes, Mama. It had a lot of money, but I didn't take any. You said stealing is wrong, even when we're hungry." Isabella's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were proud tears. "Oh, my sweet girl, you did the right thing." She turned to Robert, embarrassed and still unsure. "I'm sorry, sir. Our house isn't much. Please sit. Can I get you water?" Robert smiled faintly. "No, thank you. I'm fine." He sat down carefully on the old armchair. For a moment, no one spoke. The air between them was heavy, filled with both awkwardness and unspoken pain. Isabella wiped her face and sighed. "It's been a hard day, Mr. Wilson. I just lost my job. The diner is closing down. I don't know what we're going to do now." Robert leaned forward slowly. "You lost your job today?" She nodded. "Yes. They said business is too slow. I was trying to figure out how to tell Sophia." Sophia moved closer to her mother, hugging her arm. "We'll be okay, Mama." Robert watched the two of them quietly. Their closeness reminded him of something he had forgotten: the feeling of love without condition. He could see exhaustion in Isabella's face, but also strength, the kind that doesn't fade, even in the hardest times. "Mrs. Fernandez," he said gently, "may I ask what you used to do before the diner?" "I studied business at Riverbend Community College," she said, "but I left when I got pregnant. Since then, I've cleaned houses and waited tables. It's honest work, but not enough to live on." Robert sat back, thinking. The idea forming in his mind wasn't charity, it was opportunity. "You seem like someone who knows responsibility, who understands hard work. My company has openings for assistant facility managers. You'd need to interview properly, but I think you'd do very well." Isabella looked shocked. "You'd do that for me?" "You earned it," he said softly. "You raised a daughter who did what most adults wouldn't." The room went silent again, but this time it was filled with something new: hope. Outside, the Texas evening settled gently over Maple Street, and for the first time in a long while, the small yellow house felt warm. What none of them knew was that this single meeting was only the beginning of a story that would test every part of who they were. The next morning in Riverbend, Texas, sunlight crept through the thin curtains of the Fernandez home. The house was quiet except for the sound of the small kitchen clock ticking and Sophia's soft breathing from her bed. On the couch, Isabella Fernandez sat awake, holding the folder that Robert Wilson had given her the night before. Inside was a card with the Wilson Energy Group logo and a note that read, "Interview 9 a.m., Wilson Tower. Ask for Laura Monroe." Her fingers trembled slightly as she closed it. She had not slept much. Half of her wanted to believe it was real. The other half was afraid it wasn't. People like Robert Wilson didn't just walk into lives like hers. But he had, and something about his calm voice and gentle eyes told her it was genuine. She got up quietly and started preparing breakfast: 2 slices of bread, 1 egg, and half a banana. She made the plate look neat, even though there wasn't much to put on it. When Sophia woke up, rubbing her eyes, Isabella smiled softly. "Morning, sweetheart," she said. "Eat up. I have an interview today." Sophia's sleepy face brightened instantly. "For a new job?" "Yes," Isabella said, tying her hair into a bun. Mr. Wilson said they're looking for someone who can help manage their office facilities. I don't know much about buildings, but I know how to stay organized. Sophia jumped from the bed and hugged her. You'll get it, Mama. You're the smartest person I know. Isabella kissed her daughter's forehead. Pray for me, okay? I already did, Sophia said. The bus ride downtown felt longer than usual. Isabella's heart beat fast as she looked out the window at the tall buildings, her hands gripping the old purse that had seen better days. When the bus stopped in front of Wilson Tower, she took a deep breath and stepped off. The lobby was even larger than she remembered. Marble floors stretched across like mirrors. People in suits moved quickly, their shoes clicking against the floor. She walked up to the reception desk, where the same woman from yesterday sat, Emma Clark, with neat red hair and a calm face. Good morning, Isabella said nervously. I'm here for an interview. My name is Isabella Fernandez. Emma's lips curved into a small smile. Yes, Mrs. Fernandez. Mr. Wilson mentioned you. Please have a seat. Miss Monroe from HR will be right with you. Isabella sat down, her hands shaking slightly. She smoothed her blouse and checked her reflection in the glass wall beside her. Her clothes were clean but old, and she hoped it wouldn't matter. Moments later, a kind-looking woman in her 50s approached. Mrs. Fernandez? Yes, ma'am, Isabella said, standing quickly. I'm Laura Monroe, Human Resources Director. Please follow me. They walked into a small office with light-colored walls and a large window that overlooked the city. Laura smiled warmly. Please, sit. Mr. Wilson told me you've had a tough year. Isabella nodded. Yes, ma'am. But I'm ready to work. I always give my best. Laura leaned forward. Tell me about your experience. I studied business for 2 years at Riverbend Community College, Isabella explained, but I had to stop when I had my daughter. Since then, I've been working at diners, managing schedules, cleaning houses, and sometimes handling budgets for small clients. I've learned to stay organized even with little. Laura listened carefully, nodding. You seem very determined. This position requires someone who can coordinate maintenance schedules, manage vendors, and keep track of expenses. Would you be open to learning? Yes, ma'am, Isabella said firmly. I'm not afraid to learn. After a few more questions, Laura smiled. All right. I'll pass this on to Mr. Wilson. You'll hear from us by tomorrow. Isabella thanked her and left. But as she stepped into the lobby, she saw Robert Wilson standing near the elevator. He looked up from his phone and smiled when he saw her. How did it go? He asked. I think it went well, she said shyly. They were kind. I'm sure they were impressed, he replied. You've earned this chance. She looked at him curiously. Why are you helping us, Mr. Wilson? Robert's eyes softened. Because your daughter reminded me that good people still exist, and because helping someone honest is the best investment a man can make. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside the glass doors looked bright, but inside, the air was calm and full of quiet respect. When Isabella got home that evening, Sophia was waiting by the window. Did they hire you? Not yet, Isabella said, smiling tiredly. But I think they might. Sophia grinned and ran to hug her. We'll pray again tonight. That night, Isabella sat at the table and whispered a short prayer while Sophia slept. She thanked God for the stranger who saw her worth, for the daughter who taught her honesty, and for the hope that tomorrow might be different. The next morning, she woke to a call from an unknown number. Mrs. Fernandez? A woman's voice said. This is Laura Monroe from Wilson Energy. Congratulations, you've been offered the position. Training begins Monday. For a second, Isabella couldn't breathe. I got the job? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Wilson said to tell you he's looking forward to seeing how far you'll go. When she hung up, tears filled her eyes. She knelt beside Sophia's bed and whispered, Baby, We did it. Sophia blinked awake. You got the job? I did. Sophia threw her arms around her mother, and they both laughed through their tears. It wasn't just a job, it was a second chance. By the time Monday came, Isabella was ready. She wore her neatest clothes and took the early bus. When she arrived, Patricia Williams, the department supervisor, greeted her with a clipboard. "Welcome to the team," Patricia said kindly. "We'll start with a tour." Isabella followed her through the bright hallways, taking notes carefully. She learned about the cleaning staff, the repair crew, and the maintenance logs. Every corner of the building reminded her of how far she'd come. Robert passed by once in the afternoon, smiling when he saw her. "First day going well?" "Yes, sir," she said. "Thank you again." "Don't thank me," he replied. "You earned it." Weeks passed, and Isabella learned quickly. She organized files, solved small issues, and treated everyone with respect. When workers needed help, she listened. When schedules clashed, she found calm solutions. One day, a worker named Carlos stopped her near the elevator. "Ma'am, nobody listens to us like you do. You make this place better." She smiled humbly. "We're all part of the same team, Carlos. Everyone matters." At home, things began to change. The kitchen light finally worked again. The landlord stopped sending warnings. Sophia's laughter filled the rooms, bright and clear. But one night, as Isabella checked her email on the old phone, a message appeared from work. It was from Mark Turner, the vice president of operations. "We need to talk. Urgent." She frowned. The message felt cold, almost strange. The next morning, she arrived early and found Mark waiting near her desk. His smile was polite but sharp. "Good morning, Mrs. Fernandez. I've reviewed your recent reports. Interesting numbers." "Thank you," she said, unsure. "I tried to improve the vendor list." He nodded slowly. "We'll see if it holds up." His tone sent a chill through her. Something about his eyes made her uneasy. That night, she couldn't sleep. She didn't know that behind his smooth words, a new problem was already growing, one that would soon test everything she had worked for. The morning air in Riverbend carried a soft wind, but inside Wilson Tower, the air felt tight. Isabella Fernandez arrived early, her notebook in hand, ready to review the monthly reports she had worked on all week. Her job at Wilson Energy had become more than work. It was hope. It was pride. It was the proof that life could change when honesty led the way. But as she settled at her desk, she noticed something strange. The numbers on her report didn't match the ones she had entered. Vendor totals, budget lists, maintenance logs, all slightly changed. Her hands froze. She had checked everything twice before leaving the night before. She was careful, always careful. Her heart beat slow and heavy as she opened the company system again, scrolling through the files. Some of the numbers were altered by only a few digits, small enough to look like mistakes, but big enough to create confusion. She whispered to herself, "This isn't right." Then she saw it. The access time. It showed her username, but the timestamp was during the night when she wasn't even in the building. Fear crept in. Who did this? At that moment, Mark Turner, the vice president of operations, walked into the office, his smile tight. "Mrs. Fernandez, may I have a word?" Isabella stood, clutching her notes. "Yes, sir." He gestured toward the conference room. "Bring your report. I've noticed some inconsistencies." Inside, the long table gleamed under white lights. Patricia Williams from HR sat near the end, her face serious. David Cole from IT stood beside her with a laptop open. Isabella's stomach turned. Something was wrong, badly wrong. Mark sat at the head of the table, folding his hands. "Mrs. Fernandez," he began, "you've done good work these past months. However, There seem to be errors in your financial reports. Some vendor payments do not match the purchase orders." She shook her head. "That's impossible. I double-checked them before I left yesterday." Mark raised a brow. "The system shows your credentials made changes last night around 10:34 p.m. Do you deny that?" Her voice came out quiet, but firm. "Yes, sir. I wasn't here. I was home with my daughter." David looked up from the laptop. "Mr. Turner, if I may," he said carefully, "we can confirm whether the login came from her workstation or a different device." Mark waved his hand. "Do that. But this is serious, David. Our company can't afford carelessness." Isabella felt her throat tighten, but she stayed calm. "Sir, I would never risk my job or your company's trust." Mark's lips curved in a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see, Mrs. Fernandez." By noon, whispers had started. Workers looked at her with confusion, some with pity. The same people who once admired her now avoided her eyes. That night at home, Sophia noticed her mother's silence. "Mama, are you okay?" Isabella smiled faintly. "Just a small problem at work, baby. I'll fix it." Sophia hugged her arm. "You always do." After Sophia went to bed, Isabella sat at the table with her laptop. Her mind wouldn't rest. She opened her saved copies of the reports, comparing them line by line with the new versions in the company system. Slowly, the truth unfolded. The altered numbers were not random. Someone had changed them on purpose. And the access logs, those tiny digital footprints, showed a different workstation number. She recognized the code. It belonged to the operations office, Mark Turner's floor. Her hands shook as she printed the proof. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking through the window. She packed the papers neatly into a folder, whispered a short prayer, and left early for work. When she reached the building, she walked straight to the top floor, where Robert Wilson's office overlooked the city. His assistant looked surprised. "Mrs. Fernandez, do you have an appointment?" "No, ma'am," Isabella said calmly. "But it's important." Robert was standing by the window when she entered. The morning light fell across his suit, making him look both strong and weary. "Isabella," he said, turning, "what's wrong?" She placed the folder on his desk. "Someone changed my reports. They used my credentials to make it look like I made mistakes, but I found proof it came from another computer. Mr. Turner's office." Robert's face hardened. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. The logs, the times, everything is here." He opened the folder and studied each page. The quiet stretched long. Then he nodded slowly. "You did the right thing by coming to me." He picked up his phone. "Catherine, call Patricia from HR, David from IT, and Mark Turner. Tell them to come to my office immediately." Within minutes, the room filled. Mark entered last, confusion on his face. "Sir, what's going on?" Robert's tone was calm but cold. "We're going to find out." He handed the folder to David. "Verify everything." David began checking the data against the system. The sound of typing filled the silence. After a few tense minutes, he looked up. "It's true, sir. The files were accessed after Mrs. Fernandez left the building. The log shows edits from Mr. Turner's computer." Patricia gasped softly. Mark froze. His voice cracked as he tried to speak. "That's not possible. Stop," Robert said quietly. "You've been with this company for years, Mark. I trusted you. Why would you do this?" Mark's face twisted with frustration. "Because I worked 12 years for this company and nobody noticed me. Then she comes in, and suddenly she's everyone's favorite. You gave her everything I earned." Robert's eyes darkened. "I gave her nothing she didn't earn herself." Mark's voice broke. "You don't understand. I gave my life to this company. And you didn't even remember my mother when she was sick. She died, and I got a letter from HR saying my request for help didn't qualify." Robert stepped forward slowly. "Your mother's name was Rebecca Blake, wasn't it?" Mark blinked. Yes, sir. How did you? I remember, Robert said quietly. I sent money through my foundation to pay her hospital bills. I did it anonymously so you wouldn't feel pity. I thought I was helping. Mark's shoulders slumped. The anger in his eyes turned to shame. I didn't know. Robert looked at him for a long time, then turned to Isabella. Mrs. Fernandez, this man tried to destroy your name. What should I do with him? The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. She looked at Mark. His face was pale, broken. For a moment, she remembered her own nights of despair, when hunger made her angry at the world. Her voice came soft but steady. He made a mistake, sir, but maybe what he needs isn't punishment. Maybe he needs a chance to change. Robert studied her, surprised. You're asking me to forgive him? I'm asking you to give him a way to make it right, she said. You gave me a second chance. Maybe it's time someone gave him one too. Robert nodded slowly. You have more wisdom than most people I know. He turned to Mark. You're being demoted to senior manager. You'll stay on probation for a year, under Mrs. Fernandez's supervision. If you break one more rule, you're finished. Do you understand? Mark swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Thank you. And Mrs. Fernandez, his voice trembled. I'm sorry. Truly. She nodded quietly. Then prove it. Weeks passed, and things began to heal. Mark worked silently, but honestly, rebuilding what he had broken. The office grew closer, kinder. Months later, during the Wilson Energy family picnic at Oakview Park, Robert stood on stage before his employees. He looked at the crowd faces full of life, and then at Isabella and Sophia sitting together near the front. He spoke slowly, his voice filled with emotion. Last year, a little girl found my lost wallet. She could have kept it, but she didn't. That act of honesty reminded me that goodness still exists, even when life feels empty. Because of her, I met two people who changed everything. The crowd clapped softly. From the side of the stage, Ashley Wilson, Robert's long-lost daughter, stepped forward. Isabella had reached out to her weeks earlier, telling her that her father had changed. Robert turned, eyes filling with tears. Ashley, he whispered. She smiled through her tears. Hi, Dad. They embraced as the crowd watched in silence. For the first time in years, Robert's heart felt full. That evening, he sat outside his home on Hillcrest Drive, with Isabella beside him and Sophia playing in the yard. The stars were bright, and laughter filled the air. Funny, he said quietly. All of this began with a lost wallet. Isabella smiled. Sometimes, the smallest choices lead to the biggest miracles. Robert nodded. You were right about mercy. It doesn't erase the past, but it gives the future a chance. Inside the house, Sophia's laughter echoed, bright and pure, the sound of a child who had unknowingly changed the lives of everyone around her. And for the first time in years, Robert Wilson felt at peace. Dear viewers, this story reminds us that one simple act of honesty can change more than a single life. A poor little girl chose truth over comfort, and that choice touched the heart of a man who thought he had lost everything. Through kindness and forgiveness, broken lives were rebuilt, lost families were restored, and hope found a home again. Honesty, mercy, and love are seeds that grow wherever they are planted, no matter how dry the ground may seem. What Sophia did with a wallet, you can do with a word, a gesture, or a choice to do right when no one is watching. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what lesson you learned from this story. We love hearing your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people can be inspired to choose kindness over greed, forgiveness over hate, and honesty over fear. And before you go, answer these 3 questions in the comments. 1. What would you have done if you were in Sophia's place? 2. Do you believe forgiveness can truly change someone's heart? 3. Which moment in this story touched you the most? Stay tuned for our next emotional story, and remember, the smallest act of good can create a miracle that never ends.